All right, so we've got quite a few questions here. Bob or Padhu or Greg, did you want to start off with talking about anything we just saw, or would you like to jump into the questions?
Well, we've had a really exciting couple of days here. So we've had 6 Rivers on site with us here. We've had an open house with guests here in the facility too. So we're really all excited and ready to talk about what we've been doing here. It's just been such a great partnership and just such a good feeling and vibe here. So I really welcome questions, and I'd like to just really get into some dialogue.
All right. So let's go, and forgive me, I'm going right back and forth to the chat dialogue onto the side. And if you have any questions while we're going through this, and if the presenters are, if you have any questions while they're speaking, feel free to continue to ask your questions onto the side on the chat box. So Michael would like to know, can you share the labor savings realized?
So, of course, there's a great labor reduction here, and so CFOs want to talk about labor reduction, industrial engineers, and yes, it's important. We talked about that at length at dinner last night. It's a big topic, so that's always the thing we want to go to first. What I'll tell you is I look now at labor first as a constraint and second as an expense. So right now, all of us in this industry, we're terrified of, can we even get the help? Can you get the staffing? Can you keep it? Can you retain it? So we look at the automation that we put in here as a way of augmenting the culture that's got so much effort built. So we want to bring people in. We want them to feel immediately valuable, like they're making a difference. They're part of a really positive place. We've worked hard to make this a place that people want to be. And the chucks are a big part of that. You can train up a person in 15 minutes to pick. By the end of the first day, they're pretty much up to full standard. So yes, you publish an 81% improvement in labor productivity, yes, but that's not the number that excites me as the operator and the owner of the P&L. What I get excited about is the low turnover, the easy time to train up, the flexibility with the workforce, the gamification of the system, just the excitement, the vibe. People are just happy to be here, happy to work with it. It's just been such a positive that, I'd rather think about how many people I don't have to replace, how many people I retain. Most of the time in this industry, you have double digit turnover. And especially when you're coming up to peak season, we're all just terrified of what's going to happen. So instead, we spend our time continuing to build our culture, keeping great people here, keeping them all engaged, and have very little turnover.
Thank you. So this is a fun question, and I saw some chat dialogue. Why is the robot called Chuck? And some people say it's because of the river in Boston. So settle the age-old question: why is the robot called Chuck?
It's a question that a lot of people ask, and I'm happy to answer it here today. Don't know who's in the chat, but they're actually correct. So Boston has a river, the Charles River, that runs through it. So the idea for the company actually came to one of our founders when he went for a run one morning along the Charles River. And so Charles River, Chuck, and I'll do you one more. The Charles River is a 6-river tributary that feeds into it. So that's the advanced answer. That's the one that we'll share with you today just for CSCMP. But yes, Chuck comes from the Charles River in Boston. That's correct.
Well, since we're on that topic, I want to add that we're really on code words for our projects here. So when we were making the decision to go with 6 rivers, I was actually up in Grafton, Illinois, where the Mississippi, the Illinois, and the Missouri rivers come together. So we were up at a winery with my kids and looking over the confluence of the great rivers. So I was talking to my partners here, Padhu and others, and we came back and I was so excited. I think I got the name for this project. It's 6 rivers, it's Chuck, and we're going to have a confluence of great rivers here. So that's how we came up, and that was a big part of it. And look, Chuck's so excited he wants to be part of the show here.
Stop saying, why aren't you picking? Get picking, guys. Come on. We have more to do.
That's awesome. Oh, wait, let's do it. Okay. Doing a 360. That's great. Oh, and it lights up on the side. Very cool. So Michael would like to know, what is the pick accuracy improvement rates? Did I read that right? Yeah. What is the pick accuracy?
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Pick accuracy standpoint, it enables us to do two things, right? One, from a quality measure, it enforces every product to be scanned when the pick is happening, right? And that increases almost 100% accuracy. But if there are some exceptions as well, we enable the system as capability to take the error product to a hospital station, right? So that way we catch any errors that is not able to pick, right? So it all depends, accuracy depends on two factors: the ability to scan the product, which the system allows. Two, it enables, it provides a clear picture of work instruction to make the pick easy, but that way you eliminate any picking error. So I wouldn't call that accuracy is dependent on two factors. The system prevents you from making the wrong pick, right? That's the main thing, right? And then if any exception happens, you can capture it in hospital station. So it's a very accurate system.
Yeah, I would add as well. It's similar to the culture conversation. So it's inherently accurate in how you pick. There's a photograph or an image. Us old guys say photograph, I guess, but an image on the screen where you're picking. You have to scan the item. If there's a problem, as Padhu said, if there's a problem with the pick, it's not there, it won't scan. When you just continue on with your work, and when that card is complete, it actually drives itself to the picking hospital, and the light will come on and indicate which order needs to be taken off, and then we'll take the rest of the orders over to the pack station. Another thing we do is configurable, is we turn on and off a second QA step. So when we bring on a new client, we'll put them in hypercare, and they'll get a second 100% scan to make sure that everything is right in that order until we hit 5 nines of accuracy, and then we'll turn that feature off. So the accuracy it's more about getting to the high 5 nines accuracy quicker with a new person. So many picking systems now have high accuracy, but none of them come up to speed this fast. And the ability to turn on and off the different, how many scans do you want? How many checks do you want? And you can turn them on and off as configurable. So just like training someone up in 15 minutes, we can get someone picking accurately, and we can confirm that they're following all the steps very quickly, and then turn it off and reduce our costs.
You mentioned your WMS, and there's a few questions here about this. Let's see, I'm sure you can answer them both in this one. So Hannah would like to know, is this a standalone system, or does it have flexibility to integrate with mainstream WMS? And the other question is, what WMS does Project Verte use?
Yeah, sure. So Project Verte actually has their own unified technology stack. That's what we're integrated to here. And, I believe, and I'll probably speak to this a little bit, they built this with the idea that it would be one of the most lightweight, flexible WMSs out there. And I will tell you right now, I've been with the company since almost the beginning. We've integrated with all the tier ones, Manhattan, JDA, Red Prairie, you name it. This was single-handedly the fastest integration we have done in the company. I believe it was close to 4 weeks from ink on the contract to full go live. And we continue to ramp up and alter and change things from there. But yeah, in general, this is probably one of the fastest integrations we've ever done. And, it's not a standalone system. We rely on WMS or a system of record to integrate. We're more of an execution system that helps give some clarity. I'm happy to kind of go into that in more detail if there are questions around that.
Yeah, I'd like to address something that's really important here. It came up in one of the physical tours today. So yes, you need a standalone WMS to operate, and there's a real advantage to that. So you use your own WMS. We have a WMS too, and we'd like to talk to you about it if you're interested. But you can use virtually any WMS and integrate the 6 River system. And because of that, you keep total control of your database. So all of your inventory, your locations, your slotting, all the things that you do in your warehouse, they remain virtually unchanged. Six Rivers just layers over and just becomes your picking execution software and hardware. So you don't have to lose control of your inventory, all your cycle counting, all the things you do now to feel good about your putaways, your put-away audits, all the things that control the inventory that is sacred to either your company or your customers. If you're a 3PL, you still maintain 100% control of that. Six Rivers is going to run over top of it.
Yeah, and in fact, I just have one more comment to that, Bob. We built that by design. So our founders came from the goods to person world, a company called Kiva, some of you may know now as Amazon Robotics. And if any of you have dealt with, Bob kind of alluded to, multiple systems of record in a warehouse, that can cause inventory synchronization issues. You can get challenging real fast. So we thought about this deeply and purposefully made this to be that kind of layered execution system. And it's really provided a strong benefit to all our customers to allow them to keep their WMS, keep inventory accurate and purposeful, and let Six River systems enhance the picking speed, accuracy, and flexibility.
If I'm not directly asking what you're trying to get at, feel free to follow back up. But so there was a question here from Jonathan and he'd like to know, what's the integration/deployment process like? Does the warehouse need to be built specifically for the system?
The answer is no, right? So the benefit of Six River system is you can have your existing layout. And with that existing layout, the trucks can adapt to that layout and then work, as long as it has the minimum width for trucks to travel, right? But if you are building a new greenfield facility, you have more flexibility in building as per the flow you want the trucks to build on, right? But there's flexibility in both ways. From our standpoint, where we started is they have a standard integration APIs. Just to add on to the previous WMS question, since we develop our WMS in-house from start to finish, and our technology as well, the latest with what APIs they have, we're able to easily blend, right? So it made a real-time integration more simple, and it's really not complex, right? I mean, our WMS controls most of the logic in terms of inventory management. We integrate at a transactional level with Six River systems, and it's all cloud-based as well, similar to our WMS. And once we download all the two things we download mainly, it is just the location, the initial setup that we have to map the warehouse. And the second is the actual orders as they flow into the system in WMS. We download the orders for Six Rivers. Six Rivers uses the logic internally to optimize that. And that's all the main integration is. And once the pick is done, we get a real-time update package, right? It's as simple as 2 touch points to integrate and make it work.
Yeah. A lot of people overthink this and try to make it more complicated than it is. It really is that simple. And any warehouse or in fact, any facility, building with a flat floor and roof can use this technology. So you can also still pick in your conventional way as well. So if you want to run out and scan and pick an order yourself with a scanner gun or with a paper pick, you can, right? So you can pick right alongside. The robots are collaborative. They can see you. They'll drive around you. If your cycle counter is standing in a location counting, and the robot needs to come through the robot will just drive right around the person. So you don't have to really change much of anything. You got to get rid of mobile things, right? So you can't have a trash can in the aisle one day and not the other, right? So those sort of things you got to get a little bit used to. But it really just take any warehouse that you already have locations, you map it, you integrate it, and you just start picking.
And somebody had commented in the chat, just an FYI, that the space was huge. So, and I got to tour with you all just a few weeks ago, and I mean, it is massive. The space y'all have is massive. So it's very, very smart. So a few other questions we have here. Lee from Boston, he would like to know if you can share what other customers use Six Rivers.
So we have about well over 50 sites at this point deployed in North America and around the world, a couple in Europe, a number of them in Canada. We have some public clients such as Crate & Barrel, XPO Logistics, Lockheed Martin, just to name a few. Primarily, there's three groups of people we work with. So 3PLs are a large target customer segment of ours. I would say retail, so retail replenishment and retailers that do e-commerce. And then lastly, B2B distribution has actually become an enormous area of growth for us in that we've discovered that some of the flexibility of truck, the capacity, the size, the ability to pick products in multiple different ways actually has a lot of really powerful use cases in that type of industry. So those are the three primary types of customers that we work with, and we have a smattering of basically all three across North America.
Oh, and this is a great question. I was actually thinking about this myself. How does Project Verte and Six Rivers, how do you manage, or how are you preventing in your maintenance for, oh, excuse me, let me just read that. How are you managing service, preventative maintenance cross-border?
Is it cross-border?
Yeah. Oh, for Canada, you mean? Yeah, great question. So we actually have employees in Europe and in Canada. So they actually, we have deployment resources around the world in all of the countries that we have sites in. Great question. Yeah, it's definitely proven a little bit more challenging, obviously. We've traveled back and forth, but in addition to our Canadian resources, for example, we were acquired by Shopify last year. They're a Canadian-based company in Ottawa, and they've actually been able to pitch in and help us as well as far as getting resources. It's a powerful, powerful partnership. We've formed with them, and they've actually been able to help us as well with some of the managing some of the different travel restrictions between Canada and the US. Great question.
All right, Dean would like to know, the warehouse is mapped to the robots. How long was that process to have the robots recognize where to go? So how long did the process take for the robots to acclimate themselves in the warehouse?
Process, you first basically take a location file, you upload all the location, that is a new time, right? And then the robot actually walks to your pick path. It depends on your facility and facility layout. The time can change. In our facility, it took almost like a couple of days to map the entire flow. The three mapping paths as part of it. One is basically the actual lines we map. Second, we map the meeting points, which where the robots wait for the pickers to come and scan and pick. And the third point is actually the combination of 2 points. One is the index, where we actually build the carts and send the robots. And fourth point is part of that is the takeoff location. So it's a very three-step simple process. Depends on the warehouse number of lines and how the work works. It takes a couple of days, or if it's a really big facility, it might maximum take a week, right?
Yep. Yeah. So to add a little more color to that, again, our company is founded by people that run warehouses. They've done this for a long time. And, been having experience in some of the more higher end of automation. We knew how much challenge it can cause to have to make infrastructure changes or rip out racks or change how you put away products. So using technology developed by some of the Teslas and Googles in the world with autonomous driving, LiDAR, we actually are able to map the warehouse and drive around it accurately without any sort of barcodes, no wires, no lights, nothing like that. So it takes about 2 to 3 days to do the mapping of the warehouse, and we simply align using physical structures around it. So imagine like the legs in a pallet flow racking or the stands on a library shelving. We use that to sort of navigate around the area, and with no external sort of infrastructure required, just what you have today. And then we align your pick locations within sort of an XY coordinate grid in the Chuck system. So you get to maintain your positions, you get to maintain all your naming and nomenclature. We simply adapt to what you have today.
I'd like to know what drove the decision for Project Verte to change to Six River?
So, especially in the 3PL business, we needed flexibility. So we wanted to control our data. right? We have the full tech stack now, all the way from the visibility tools, our seller portal, distributor order management system, inventory management, purchase order suggestion, our Vert Zero integration. We can integrate and connect to anything. The one thing we didn't have was a WMS. So we had outsourced that and used a third party, and we had a problem with that. And so we wanted to have total control of our data, our technology, so we brought that in-house. And we looked for something that would especially layer over it, that we would not be giving data away. We would keep our data and would have a system that would execute over top of it. We wanted something that culturally fit. You know, that I'm an old operator, but I've learned that culture and leadership is the difference between companies that are successful and those that are not. So we were looking for something where we could control that would be a pleasant thing for people to use. We wanted something that was easy, could be gamified, that was easy to adapt to. We wanted a partner that was run by operators. We wanted people who understood operations, understood what it means to be picking orders on peak at 3 in the morning, and you can't get something to work right. I wanted to work with people who suffered like I have in that. So, and people that really understood the industry. And so those were the decisions of why we left other types of technology and went to something like this, because we wanted a strong partnership. We wanted an operator-based system, and we wanted something that people would enjoy using.
If I can add to that, right, from a strategical perspective, it enables us to not only meet our current needs and also the future needs, right? How relevant it is to the current situation because of COVID, e-commerce, and everything changing. The system provides flexibility in scaling up or scaling down based on the need, right? So that's one of the criteria for 6 Rivers. And again, the ability to a platform that it can do both picking as well as in the future when we have a peak, you can also go to permission to do that, right? So we use those aspects of the criteria as well to do that. And what is dynamic, right? Because of the 6 Rivers tied to the cloud and in-house system, there are capability within that where it can do what is dynamic, right? In terms of, okay, how do we change the demand and how the protection will happen? All those data inside. Because data is oil now, right? The new oil, think about it. And 6 Rivers provide those capability as part of that. And that insight from dashboarding and how we manage will really differentiate from this.
Yeah, there's a deeper question in there. It's very good. There's a deeper question in there, and it's a really good question. So the other one, there was a previous question about how hard to deploy, how long does it take to map. So, you know, everyone knows what SaaS is now, software as a service. So consider robots as a service, or consider fulfillment as a service, or warehousing as a service. So think about the entire continent of North America being one cloud warehouse, and any place with a flat floor and a dry roof can become a fulfillment center. So with this sort of technology, our stack and the 6 Rivers technology, it's so scalable and flexible, we can drop our system in a matter of days or weeks. We can follow up quickly with robots, either initially or as an add-on option. We could have a micro fulfillment center set up anywhere as fast as we can set up a Wi-Fi grid and bolt some shelves to the floor. And we'll get the robots coming from the factory, and while we're bolting metal to the floor and pulling wires and bolting down packing stations, and we can pick the old-fashioned way of our system with scanner guns. We can run over a cell phone network, or we can have the robots drive in, and then we can add robots as we need them. So it's more like forklifts, right? If you open up a 750,000 square foot warehouse, the first day you don't buy all the forklifts you need for the warehouse if it's completely full. You would add a few forklifts every month as you start ramping up, because you don't want to hold that expense. So the robots in this sort of world work the same way. You can piecewise move up, you can scale up as you go, and you can move them. You know, if you're in a 3PL world, if you gain an account, you lose an account, you don't have to change. You just move the robots over. You can move them over in the same building, or you can put them on a truck and drive them to another warehouse. Doesn't matter. with old-fashioned technology, where or more sophisticated material handles like shuttle systems or something like that, or ASRS. Once that's bolted down, those systems don't move well, and they don't adapt well either. So when how many warehouses have I been in where you design a system for a certain order profile, and then the order profile changes? And we're seeing that all over now, where mainline retailers or shippers, when e-commerce was 0.5%, 1%, 2%, kind of a novelty. Now all of a sudden, COVID has hastened that, and it's not going back. So now e-commerce is double digits, and these rigid systems are breaking. And there has to be a flexible way to do this. And with this sort of combined tech stack and system, we can scale in any geography, any zip code really quickly.
Yeah, and if I can just add one more story to that, you nailed it on the flexibility. And just to kind of illustrate this sort of point, when COVID first hit back in March, we had one of our Canadian 3PLs that has about 4 or 5 sites with us. They had one site that was mostly doing retail replenishment, a different site that was doing e-commerce. And obviously retail sort of fell off a cliff, right, for this first month or two. They made the decision within a week to basically shut that warehouse down, load the trucks into a trailer. They had them over their e-commerce site 2 hours later. They were up and running within a day, doubling their capacity for automation. So when you think about why people use technology, right? You're right, maybe it's not the fanciest or absolute fastest you can get in the world, but it's flexible. It's going to get you 80% of the way there versus with the person system at a fraction of the cost, right? So it's things like that that are really driving the adoption of this type of technology across the industry.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions here. So just with time, I'm probably going to jump around to a few since, again, I know we've covered some of these. So, okay. How did you evaluate, Michael would like to know, how did you evaluate the ROI for the project, and can you share what the actual ROI was for the project?
That is the most boring question.
Yeah, and actually it's funny you asked that, Michael. So this was sort of a greenfield design in conjunction with Project Verte.
Yeah.
I think if I recall correctly, roughly we had put it around manual part rates were around 80 lines per hour, and I think we're picking around 130 to 140 lines per hour, if that gives you a little bit of a productivity understanding for a certain particular client. That being said, they have a number of different clients and different rates and different types of pick operations. So really, to Bob's point earlier, I mean, we're starting to hear a lot of people that, yeah, the ROI is done and there's a big rate increase and an accuracy increase. There's real dollars associated with that, and I'm happy to help anybody out there understand a little bit about their operation. But particularly in a greenfield site design, there's a lot more benefit that you can get out of the site that can be captured just by dollars and cents. And the labor challenge is a big one there, but there's even such things like minimizing the space they need. We're helping them understand slotting and what the best benefit they can use technology for. But all have realizable dollars that we can put attribute to beyond just that pick rate increase.
Yeah, I'll compare that too. So there is a really good ROI. So having done this for 11 million years, you're gonna pick most e-commerce orders on a cart with maybe 40 bin slots on it, and you're going to get about maybe 75, 80 picks an hour, and conventional picking, and then a long train up. You're going to get about 130, 140 picks an hour with the chucks. If you throw in some singles batching, you'll get some 250 picks an hour instantaneous on some things like that. So I've been in the 3PL business forever and having priced every deal in North America at least twice. I've built every cost model you can possibly imagine. That's why I say it's boring, because I'm sick to death of looking at them. But you're going to build your labor costs up, and then you're going to burden it with your material handling equipment, right? So you do the ROI in the same way you look at a tilt trace order or a pack sorter or a shuttle system or whatever, or converting from hand pallet jacks to center riders to stand-up counterbalance, right? You just look at it as a piece of equipment. It goes into your fixed cost. And so you just build up a zero-based budget model with labor, management, fixed overhead, your PF&D. And so you build that up. And so it's a very straightforward mathematical model. and the driver is you're going to go from 80 to 130 picks an hour. You're going to reduce your headcount in picking. You're also going to reduce your management headcount now because you have less people to manage, right? So your supervisor ratio goes down, and even goes down more than just that percentage because the job is easier to do. So it requires less intervention of leadership. So you have less leads, suits, hospital people, inventory control people, because it's so much simpler to use. So that's a huge benefit that people don't necessarily see, is how much management overhead you can remove from that first line level. And then you just add in the cost of the equipment, and there's a lease to buy or a purchase, and it's your economic decision. But you're either going to have a depreciation number every month or a lease number every month that you just put into your cost model. So a little bit of that 80 to 130 picks an hour gets consumed by the purchase of the chuck, the same way they consumed by a sorter or a conveyor or anything else.
And if I can just add one last comment to that, I love that Bob talks about ROI being kind of, yes, we still do an ROI, but there's a lot more to the system than that. One of the things I think is interesting is ROI, or reciprocal payback, is really applicable in the old style of purchasing, right? Capital, expensive equipment, steel, unit sorters. With rental, which is what we offer, a number of other robot companies do too. It's not just something we've invented. With a rental or a lease option, I challenge all of the CSCMP people listening right now to think about this in a different way, right? You can get cash flow positive, generate real dollars on your assets, a return on asset, within a few months, as opposed to thinking about it as a traditional sort of capital payback over the course of a year, or 1.2 years, 1.3 years, whatever we were at here. So anyway, just a way for you folks out there to think about things a little bit differently. The industry's changing with sort of this type of, as Bob mentioned, SaaS had a huge impact on the software model by changing the way people thought about the returns on their investments. Mm-hmm. And I would say that the rental model to ROI should be the same thing in this industry today.
Yep.
We have a similar question, and they'd like to know essentially, what did the picking process look before Six River? Was the hand scanner, paper pick? If so, can you contrast the pick speed changes you saw and what limits the automation made?
Implemented more locations.
Yeah, so, if anybody's interested in kind of learning more about specific case studies, we're happy to sort of do maybe a one-on-one session afterwards to discuss maybe some more specific numbers around these. But typically what we see is around a 70 to 80% gain going from RF. So I would say the average type of manual picking that we have, or that we would replace the system is using RF-based picking. Typically we're somewhere in the 70 to 80% lines per hour gain rate, depending on what the existing infrastructure is today, how big the square footage of the warehouse is, a couple other factors like that. Just to give you some other sort of comps, we've placed a number of collect pick-to-voice systems. Typically, the jump there is about 30 or 40%. They're already sort of form of automation. So that's just kind of give you a couple of ranges of some of the benefits of productivity we see, but it's a little bit hard to say one way or another about specific operations. And even in a case like Project Verte, because they have multiple types of clients, multiple types of picking, we'd have to break that down kind of area by area, but 70 to 80% is probably roughly the average, the blended average, if that helps you think about it that way. And that's pretty consistent across a lot of our sites, with some that are up as high as 150% that were very manual paper picking, and some as low as the 30 or 40% that were doing something a little more advanced like pick to voice. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, in our case, it was more about reliability. So we had some automation in our operation before, and when it was running, the pick rates are much higher than either car picking or Six River systems. But that only matters when it's actually working. So we didn't have the control that we wanted. We didn't have the ability to react to things like an inventory change, or even a change in unit of measure. So synchronizing systems, multiple systems of record, which is a contradiction in terms, right? So you might have an error in a item catalog dimension or a weight, and that propagates through a system, and it is a snarl to remediate. And so you'd have those embarrassing conversations where you couldn't get orders out, and the answer was longer than the question about why you couldn't get the order out. Here, we've got complete control of what's going on. There's never a time we don't know everything about the product, where it is, all the time.
As I mentioned, there are quite a bit of questions here and they're still trickling through. Perhaps we can get these questions to you folks, and maybe we can get them all answered together and follow up with everyone who's joined the call just for. Pardon?
Yeah, what's a guy got to do to get a drink around here?
Yeah. Oh. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, we do have quite a bit of questions. Should we ask one or two more, and then we can get to the cocktail hour?
Oh, I have to wait. All right.
Oh, you need a lime? Okay.
Yeah, bring it on.
You want one more? Two more? Okay. Let's go back here. 1 second. Oh, how long does it take to charge Chuck to full capacity, and how long does a full battery last for?
A full charge of Chuck lasts about 16 to 18 hours, but, I say but, a little asterisk there, we have an auto charger technology that, so we use lithium-ion batteries, some pretty advanced auto charger technology that can actually charge the battery from about 20 or 30% all the way up to 80% within about 20 minutes. So we have multiple facilities that actually do full 3-shift, 24-hour picking. And part of that is that the Chuck, basically after it drops off the last of the orders, pulls itself out of the workflow, backs into the auto charger all on itself, no human labor required, charges up for about 20 minutes, and then heads out onto the picking floor. So the actual true battery charge is about 16 or 17 hours, but you can operate them essentially 24 hours at a time without interruption. And that's a part of the design we do and the detail kind of level of modeling we go to. We will factor in the actual downtime for charging, the downtime for all of those types of changes in behavior to really understand and give you whoever's talking sort of a true understanding of what their throughput will be, what their utilization of Chucks will be, on time versus off time. Yeah, good question.
And then one thing I can also add is they also have capability to charge the index. The index also acts as a station for Chuck to come back home and stay overnight if they're not doing 24/7 operation. So you can also triple charge it, and it's also very fast, right? So in our experience, we never faced any problem with the charging or Chuck not being functioning because of charging.
So a few other people would like to know, can the Chuck replenish, and what is the weight limit of the Chuck?
The weight limit is 200 pounds, so we can do case replenishment or each is put away. And the overall limit for a product is around 200 pounds. And we have some folks as far as the order quantity, they get over 60, 70 orders per Chuck. So actually, one comment we should probably make, you've all seen the 2-level Chuck in these videos and this image here. We actually have a new Chuck that has multiple shelves and multiple types of shelf. To again, kind of maintain that flexibility Bob was talking about between picking the totes, picking the shipping containers, GOH, singles batches, multis batches, discrete order picks. So capacity from a weight order perspective is pretty variable, but 200 pounds is a limit.
Quite touch on before. There was a question from one of my colleagues up in Boston, again, Lee. He wanted to ask about the safety precautions so the associates can feel safe. Is there safety training to be used, or can you explain what that looks like? What are the where people feel safe working along him or her?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the certifications, and I would love to hear some from you two about kind of what the associates think, because Bob mentioned that's probably the more important thing than either of us speak. But So we are CE certified. I think we're actually one of the few autonomous mobile robots that are. We're fully CE certified, which actually has some impact on autonomous travel. So there's AGV safety standards, there's ANSI standards, and a lot of those are rolled up under traditional CE certification. So the truck is smart. It will stop in front of, if there's any obstacles in the way, it instantaneously stop. It will avoid obstacles in the road. Most of the sites that we have, people take probably about a day or two to get used to how the truck interacts with them, and at that point, they barely even notice it. But I don't know if you guys want to give some more G2 on that.
Well, so, I mean, now, having run it for a long time now, I hardly even notice the truck. If I'm standing out there, it'll come up and walk and drive around me, and I don't really pay much attention to it. So, we're very sensitive to our perception of our people here, right? So bringing in robots and having them work with them, we actually cloistered a group of people together, our confidence team, and they worked, in their own, separate facility within the facility to bring these robots on. So we had a group of people at all levels who were part of the onboarding team. So they adopted it early on, worked side by side with the Six Rivers team all along. So it wasn't like one day you come in and there's Terminator robots driving around. It was just like, it's really more like a neato cool like gadget, right? It's more like a new Xbox or something, right? That's just really cool. People love them. I've never once considered that there was a safety concern. I mean, they don't drive that fast. They're at an aggressive walking speed, I think, right?
Yes.
So they stop. They're very safe, and it's not like they have tracks and they're going to run over you. I mean, if one went completely rogue, I can't imagine it could still hurt you.
No. Yeah, I kind of one little funny story that I've seen in some of our sites. So this will sound like heresy to many of you, but some of our sites that use trucks for peak, they actually put the temporary labor on the trucks for picking, which I know is traditionally kind of a job type that people try to avoid temp labor, accuracy, and all the training problems associated with that. But as Bob mentioned, right, training is almost instantaneous, accuracy, all that stuff. So you can go into a site and peak, and you can tell who's new there or whose first aid is, because they're the ones that are looking at the robot still and maybe trying to avoid it, whereas the rest of the picking staff, the off point, barely even notices they're there anymore. And that's just because how smooth they are as far as navigating them.